What's going on YouTube? It's Biggs, and we got a sad one today because we have a updated ban restricted card notice. So I don't think I have to scroll further before you guys already know what's already been hit. But yes, it was red cards specifically, and while I am with the community on this 100%, I don't think some of the cards were correct. I think a little bit was tone deaf. I don't think it's going to change much, if at all, of what you're going to see, with the exception that they murdered only one red deck. I hope this isn't a sign that they're slowly just going to assassinate each red deck. But this completely gutted Ninebeard versions of Whitebeard. I don't think a Straw Hat version will fill the void that this is going to leave. In my opinion, I think if you really wanted to just deal with the leader, just ban Whitebeard. I would have been the first banned leader. I know some people, myself included, would have been upset about it, but I mean, just ban the leader at this point. But seriously, I do think that the 9-drop was an issue in multiples. Do I think it's going to be an issue going forward into OP4? Not really. OP4 has Red Rock. There's already ways to deal with the big drops. Now we had Lucci. Rebecca will have access to all black removal, blue removal. So again, I'm hoping, they realize it's not that. It's a good card. I'm not going to sit here and say that this card is not amazing. But I'm hoping by set 4 that some of the changes get revisited. But yeah, Newgate, again, I think it's kind of a heavy-handed ban, or limiting to 1, maybe 2 would have been okay. Marco, guys, I don't even know what to say. This isn't even the right Marco. If you guys were crying about this Marco, go play Yu-Gi-Oh! This was not the problem. I'm going to talk about it when I get to the deck list, but bro, this was nowhere near an issue. 5-drop Marco, in my opinion, was a far worse offender for cards that stick around and do too much. Blocker Marco, you're gutting Whitebeard even further because that was his defense. Zoro could run it, but let's be real, it wasn't as impactful as it is to Whitebeard, the leader. So yeah, Zoro's gonna survive this, by the way, if you haven't realized. The only exception is that now all red decks lose access to Radical Beam. This is the only one that I'm on board with, guys. This is the one that I've said, if you guys remember from my OP3 tier list video, the only card I was like, wow, this is a dumb card going forward for a long time. This is the one that I hope sticks post OP04. Because again, it just gives red decks too much survivability. If you looked at any JP red deck, whether it be Zoro, Whitebeard, or Law, they're playing multiples of this card. Some Laws are running 4 of this card. So that should go and tell you that this card's pretty good. So yeah, Radical Beam, I think, is the only card I'm 100% on board with. I think it's enough. I think Whitebeard decks could have survived if we're being realistic. You could play Crossfire. Crossfire is not a viable replacement. I understand that. Obviously, Radical Beam's busted. However, you could play Crossfire and get away with having that, and it be more fair because why? It costs 2 and not 1. For 2 Don, I could do 8k worth of counter with this card, whereas I'll only be able to play this one card. That's fair. Um, Zoro, I mean, you can switch out for guard point, probably still hit the same success. This is I'm like maybe a card or two off of what I ran for our Fiery Doll Zoro list. This deck is not going anywhere. You will still find Zoro in some shape or form, and it's gonna mash your face, and you're still gonna cry. So if you're jumping for joy at this ban list or restriction list, you kind of missing the big picture here. Zoro's still gonna be a fucking menace. He has 80 different build varieties still. There's a Thatch version that didn't even run 9-drop that you're gonna still see. You might see more Straw Hatty versions. Who knows? But Zoro ain't going nowhere, boys. And then finally, Law. I'm going to talk about Law because nobody wants to ever talk about Law. I am a Law main. I love this deck. I've loved this deck since S1. If you guys have been following the channel at all, you know I love this deck. And they did nothing. So if they continue to make changes that only affect Whitebeard, you're only going to see Law and Zoro. Black will get pushed further down because faster decks beat Black pretty well. Lucci has a shot at still staying relevant, but and then what else is there? Katakuri. I'm gonna be honest with you. I still think Katakuri is mid as fuck. I don't think he deals well with pressure from red. He definitely sucks against Law. So any of you guys who invested in yellow, yikes. Uh, Whitebeard was an offender too, don't get me wrong. This was not a fun matchup for Katakuri, but I still think Zoro is very strong in that regard, depending on which version of Zoro you play. And then obviously Law, the one deck that'll never see any change. So yeah, that's it. I don't like the changes. Personally, I could live with 9-drop being limited. I could live with Rad Beam being limited. I think this should have been Marco, and if we really, really, really wanted to be efficient at changing and shaking up the meta, I think 100,000% it should have been Dodon. If you don't realize why Dodon's a good card, or you don't think it's good, or see why her long-term value is just too high, go play Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm gonna stop shitting on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Players. You guys are awesome. But seriously, Red having back-to-back searches all the time is what makes it feel so oppressive. I'm mostly talking about Zoro when I talk about Red and Law. Is that you're able to go Dodon into Ezo, into a Whitebeard Pirate, or into Buggy, into a Whitebeard Pirate. Like, depending on, again, what version you're playing. But, like, those back-to-back low-value searchers that also are filling the board for Zoro because he wants to go wide anyway. Again, Dodon should have been hit. Dodon would have hurt Law a lot because then they lose access to being able to find all the 2k counters by the end of the game. Otama into blank effect. I mean, you can do so much shit with Otama. She's one of the best cards in the game. A staple, but a healthy staple. I like that this card exists. However, Dodon being able to find her all the time, or find Makino, find my Nami, I think it's too much. So I think this should have been number 1 on the chopping block, followed by a Rad Beam. And that would have been a way better ban list. This Marco ban, I think, is completely dumb, ridiculous, and Bandai is blind and deaf to realize that this is not the problem, that they probably should have hit the 5-cost Marco. I don't think that this card should have ever existed. I mean, they literally printed Vista and then power crept him the next set and made him incredibly good. So 1 Don plus 0, 7k swing Marco, yeah. No, but blocker Marco's a problem. Blocker Marco's a problem, guys. But it is what it is. Whitebeard, in the shape that we know him right now, is probably not going to be so strong. I'm sure you can still find some way to play him. Did it probably bring him down to too much? I think so. Again, I'm not a fan of the Straw Hat version in this metagame. Go ahead and try it. Um, but again, two bigger problems are still left on the table. It didn't push any of the other decks up, in my opinion, enough. So I think this ban list was kind of wasted. So enjoy, guys. If you hated Whitebeard, you got your wish. But that's it, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace.